In this video we will be talking about Abbot Ibn Bishr, may Allah be pleased with him, and how much he enjoyed reciting the Quran. It was the 4th year after the Hijrah. The city of the Prophet was still under threat from within and without. From within, the influential Jewish tribe the Banu an-Nadir broke their agreement with the Prophet and made plans to kill him. For this they were banned from the city. This was in the month of Safar. 2 months of uneasy quiet passed. Then the Prophet received news that tribes from distant Najd were planning an attack. To prevent them, the Prophet gathered a force of over 400 men and, leaving one of his companions, Osman ibn Affan, in charge of the city, set out eastwards. Among this force was the young Madanan, Abbot Ibn Bishr. Arriving at Najd, the Prophet found the habitations of the hostile tribes strangely deserted of men. Only women were about. The men had taken to the hills. Some of them regrouped and prepared to fight. The time of prayer al-Asr came. The Prophet feared that the hostile tribesmen would attack them during prayer. He arranged the Muslims in ranks and divided them into 2 groups and performed the prayer as the prayer of fear. With one group he performed 1 rak'ah while the other group stood on guard. For the second rak'ah the groups changed places. Each group completed its prayer with 1 rak'ah after the Prophet had finished. On beholding the disciplined ranks of the Muslims, the hostile tribesmen became uneasy and afraid. The Prophet had made his presence felt, and something of his mission was now known at first hand in the central highlands of Arabia once he departed peacefully. On the way back, the Prophet pitched camp in a valley for a night. As soon as the Muslims had settled their camel mounts, the Prophet, peace be on him, asked, "Who will be our guard tonight?" "We, O Messenger of Allah," said Abbot Ibn Bishr and Amr ibn Yasir, both of whom had been paired off as brothers by the Prophet when he arrived in Medina after the Hijrah. Abbot and Amr left for the mouth of the valley to take up duty. Abbot saw that his brother was tired and asked him, "What part of the night do you wish to sleep, the first or the second?" "I shall sleep during the first part," said Amr, who was soon fast asleep quite close to Abbot. The night was clear, calm, and peaceful. The stars, the trees, and the rocks all appeared to celebrate in silence the praises of their Lord. Abbot felt relaxed. There was no movement, no threatening sign. Why not spend the time in worship and reciting the Quran? How delightful it would be to combine the performance of Salat with the measured recitation of the Quran, which he so much enjoyed. In fact, Abbot was enthralled by the Quran from the moment he first heard it being recited by the mellow and beautiful voice of Mus'ab ibn Umair. That was before the Hijrah, when Abbot was just about 15 years old. The Quran had found a special place in his heart, and day and night. Thereafter he would be heard repeating the glorious words of Allah, so much so that he became known among the Prophet's companions as the friend of the Quran. Late at night, the Prophet once stood up to perform the night supererogatory prayer in Aisha's house, which adjoined the masjid. He heard a voice reciting the Quran, pure and sweet and as fresh as when the angel Gabriel revealed the words to him. He asked, "Aisha, is that the voice of Abbot Ibn Bishr?" "Yes, O Messenger of Allah," replied Aisha. "O Lord, forgive him," prayed the Prophet out of love for him. And so in the stillness of the night at the mouth of the valley in Najd, Abbot stood up and faced the Qibla. Raising his hand in surrender to God, he entered into the state of prayer. Finishing the compulsory opening chapter of the Quran, he began reciting Surah Al-Kahf in his sweet, captivating voice. Surat Al-Kahf is a long surah of 110 verses which deals in part with the virtues of faith, truth, and patience, and with the relativity of time. While he was absorbed in reciting and reflecting upon the divine words, eternal words of illumination and wisdom, a stranger stalked the outskirts of the valley in search of Muhammad and his followers. He was one of those who had planned to attack the Prophet but who had fled into the mountains on the approach of the Muzims. His wife, whom he had left in the village, had been taken as a hostage by one of the Muslims. When he eventually found that his wife was gone, he swore by Al-Lat and Al-Izza that he would pursue Muhammad and his companions and that he would not return unless he had drawn blood. From a distance the man saw the figure of Abbot silhouetted at the mouth of the valley, and he knew that the Prophet and his followers must be inside the valley. Silently he drew his bow and let fly an arrow. Unerringly it embedded itself in Abbot's flesh. Calmly Abbot pulled out the arrow from his body and went on with his recitation, still absorbed in his salat. The attacker shot a second and a third arrow, both of which also found their mark. Abbot pulled out one and then the other. He finished his recitation, made ruku and then sujud. Weak and in pain he stretched out his right hand while still in prostration and shook his sleeping companion. Amr awoke. Silently Abbot continued the prayer to its end and then said, "Get up and stand guard in my place. I have been wounded." Amr jumped up and began to yell. Seeing them both, the attacker fled into the darkness. Amr turned to Abbot as he lay on the ground, blood flowing from his wounds. "Glory be to Allah. Why didn't you wake me when you were hit by the first arrow? I was in the middle of reciting verses of the Quran which filled my soul with awe, and I did not want to cut short the recitation. The Prophet had commanded me to commit this surah to memory. Death would have been dearer to me than that the recitation of this surah should be interrupted." Abbot's devotion to the Quran was a sign of his intense devotion to and love for Allah, his Prophet, and his religion. The qualities he was known for were his constant immersion in worship, his heroic courage, and his generosity in the path of Allah. At times of sacrifice and death he would always be in the front line. When it was time for receiving his share of rewards, he would only be found after much effort and difficulty. He was always trustworthy in his dealings with the wealth of Muslims. Ali this was recognized. Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, once said, "There are three persons among the Ansar whom no one could excel in virtue: Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, Uzayd ibn Hudayk, and Abbot ibn Bishr." Abbot died the death of a shaheed at the Battle of Yamama. Just before the battle he had a strong presentiment of death and martyrdom. He noticed that there was a lack of mutual confidence among the Muhajirin and Ansar. He was grieved and upset. He realized that there would be no success for the Muslims in these terrible battles unless the Muhajirin and Ansar were grouped in separate regiments, so that it could be clearly seen who really bore their responsibility and who were truly steadfast in combat. At the break of day, when the battle commenced, Abbot ibn Bishr stood on a mound and shouted, "O Ansar, distinguish yourselves among men, destroy your scabbards, and do not forsake Islam." Abbot harangued the Ansar until about 400 men gathered around him, at the head of whom were Thabit ibn Qais, Al-Bara ibn Malik, and Abu Dujana, the keeper of the Prophet's sword. With this force Abbot unleashed an offensive into the enemy's ranks which blunted their thrust and drove them back to the Garden of Death. At the walls of this garden Abbot ibn Bishr fell. So numerous were his wounds, he was hardly recognizable. He had lived, fought, and died as a believer. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.